All right. So once you know how to log in and you've got everything set up as far as your profile goes and you understand how to use the journal, our next thing we're going to do is look at our projects or our SAE experiences, how we put them in there, how we track them, and then how we print out a record book at the end. So again, to log in, you use your chapter login MT0010. Username is first initial and last name with the first two capitalized. We're going to jump right in here and I'm going to pick on Gracie this time. And Gracie's account, just like yours, will have profile, journal, finances, and reports with those same 4 tabs up there. You should know how to use profile and journal. If you haven't watched that first video and aren't set up in your profile, make sure and get that done first before we jump in here. So this third category, finances, is all about your SAE project. So maybe you raise an animal for fair, or maybe you have a job where you work somewhere, or maybe you're doing a research experiment or something like that. Those all start in this finances column. And one thing I want to point out is that as you are using this program, a common button we're going to click is this project manager. For any of those projects, like I mentioned, this will take you to a screen where you can see an overview of them. And you'll notice if you go to profile, the project manager is right there. Or if you go to journal, your project manager is right there. Or if you go to finances, your project manager is right there. So you can click a lot of different places and get to it, but that's where it's all going to start. So we'll jump right into project manager. And again, here's Gracie's, and hers looks good because she has several projects going and she has entries for all of them, and you don't see any big red flags. That's great. But you, if you haven't done one yet, are going to have to start. And you click add new. We're going to pretend that Gracie all of a sudden gets an itch to raise rabbits, because I think it'd be kind of funny if Gracie decided to raise rabbits. So she's going to call her project Rabbit Ranch. One note I would say is if you have multiple projects, make sure and get specific on the names. So if you show a steer every year, name it, 2018 fair steer or something like that, so that you know which steer is which. Or if you want to give it its individual name, that's fine. Her focus is individual. You do these other ones if you were doing a project, as part of a group or something like that. Foundational is really for projects where you're not sure exactly what you're doing, but you're just trying to build some skills. Most people don't have foundational. Agri-science would be if you're doing a research project of some type. So like Avery Durfee is doing some research on cattle using GPS. Hers would be an agri-science project. If you're working for your parents or if you're working for a store or something like that, you'd have a placement job that's working for somebody. If you worked for somebody but didn't get paid, like a PIL as an example, that would be unpaid placement. And entrepreneurship or ownership is where you have the project and you make the choices and you get the money as a result. So raising fair animals or a fair project is a good example of that. So Gracie's going to be an entrepreneur of a rabbit ranch. She's going to choose what category it is in. For her, it'll be animal systems, but you can choose any of those that apply. She's going to pick small animal, and head of rabbits will be her unit, so when she's keeping inventory. And then for management module, there's a market manager for if you have a market animal, like a fair animal, and there's a breeding herd manager. I'm not going to get into those two in this video because it'd take too long, but if you do have breeding projects, it's a good tool to use, and you should ask me sometime to show you the process of setting those up, because it can be a pretty good way to keep track. And then when we apply for things like state degree your senior year, all the information will be in there and you don't have to scratch your head trying to think back about how to remember what you did. So we'll click save, and now she's got a new project, and it looks like this pink color, and it has a kind of warning sign there and an X next to the pencil and a bunch of zeros in it. That means the project is basically incomplete. To complete this project, we go through each of these boxes. Your settings you shouldn't have to mess with. If you have an old project or something you don't do, you can inactivate it and it'll go down there to the bottom. But we're going to say it's active. We already set up the name and all about it. We're going to hit the plan. There's 4 parts to a plan, and you need to complete all 4 parts. And this will come into play later when you do your record books or when you apply for degrees and things like that. They're really easy. The whole process of starting an SAE and setting up the record book should not take you more than an hour. It looks like you have to write a lot, but you can literally copy this and then paste it down below and fill in the blanks. I did that for Gracie, and if you look, all I did is I just filled in the blanks. She wants to raise mama rabbits. This is when it starts and ends. These are what her 3 goals are. Try and make them good, specific goals. And then it says who's helping her, and what she's going to do for safety. You don't have to follow this to a T. You can say whatever you'd like. You can say one boring sentence. You can say a paragraph, however you like to do it. But it's the same concept. You're going to fill in each of these areas. How much time do you plan to put in? You can copy and paste that one down below. You can keep it really simple and straightforward and not take much time setting it up if you don't want to. But if you want to get specific, by all means do it. And then here is what some income expenses might be for your project. The learning objectives one is one a lot of people skip, but it's one that's going to be important for your records, and I'll show you why in just a minute. So it's easy enough. All you do is click add skill areas, and it gives you a pile of different areas that you can use. And each one of these then has all of these different areas that you can meet, all of these different qualifications of what you did and didn't do. Now, you don't need to include a million of them, but you should include some things that you want to do. And if you look through, most of them are very doable. So demonstrate management techniques that ensure welfare. That's like keeping your pen clean, making sure they have water, working with them safely, things like that. Nutritional needs, what are you feeding them and why? Stuff like that is all pretty easy to do. And so you can just click add for as many of those as you want. We'll put in just those two for now. If you have a project that's not straightforward, like animal systems, and you're not sure what kind of skills you can have and none of them really seem to fit, you might look at either foundational skills or career-ready practices. Those have a lot of pretty generic ones, and so they're easy enough to kind of apply to anything. So model personal responsibility. No matter what your project is, you could probably do that one. Or if you look through here, assess, identify, and synthesize information and resources to make decisions. Most projects could do that too. So that's a good one if you're not sure what to do. But we're going to save those two that we had and go back. So for each of those skill areas I selected, it's asking me to put in planned activities. Now, if I have management techniques, I'm going to say clean pen. I'm going to say fill water. And then I'm going to say groom rabbits. Pretty straightforward. And you can get a lot more specific, a lot more elaborate with those if you want. That's totally fine. But I would put something in each one just so your records look complete. And I'll show you that at the end. Nutritional needs. I talked to Jennifer at Yellowstone Feeds about rabbits. So you could put in all of that in there. You could put in whatever you're doing to make sure your rabbits have feed. Easy enough. Save and return. So now that you're back here, these check marks mean you've done all the areas of the plan. So the only one that I did was those skill areas, but if you filled in all three other areas, that'll get a check mark, and that means you're good to go. Financial entries are simply the money in and money out. Journal entries are the hours that you've done, and your files or photos are any documents that you want to attach. So if I go financial entries and click that, I can say new entrepreneurship income, new entrepreneurship expense, new placement income, or I can go back. Again, placement is working for somebody else. Entrepreneurship is working for yourself. So since she's doing the rabbit ranch, we're going to say she has an entrepreneurship expense. And we're going to add the experience, the rabbit ranch. We're going to say she bought feed. We'll pretend that feed cost $100. And for the memo, we're going to say 3 bags of rabbit finisher. And the vendor or payee, vendor is who you bought from, or payee is who wrote you the check. So a vendor, we're going to say Yellowstone Feeds in there. It's already in there. Perfect. Save and return. So now she has an expense for that. If she sold rabbits, she can do an income. She's going to say it was a sale. She sold a rabbit for $25, and she's going to say sold baby to neighbor. Easy enough. Good job, Gracie. Way to make a sale. Save and return. Oh, neighbor is her vendor or payee in that case. Yeah, I don't know how to spell neighbor. So there we go. We can start seeing the money that she has in this project. The more you put in, the more complete that will be. So we're going to return to her AET. And those are all pretty straightforward. You can also do your journal entries and your financial entries through these tabs here by saying cash entries, and it'll go the same way. You can review those. You can do your beginning values. So if you already own some animals or have some money in the bank, you can add that in there. Or if you do like a labor exchange, you work for your parents and they give you, a free steer, that's where you'd put stuff like that. Again, if you have specific questions on stuff like that, you can always go to student help, and there's a lot of information, or you can reach out to Mrs. Standler and myself. Journal entries is simply how much time did you put in. And a new class activity is something you did in class. Project, of course, is for your SAE project. This is where we'll put in Gracie's Rabbit Ranch. And we'll say today is when she did it. It was for the Rabbit Ranch. The skill area was this one that we already discussed earlier. Perfect. We're going to save and go back. She spent 2 hours cleaning pens. And that's all we expect. We don't expect you to write a paragraph about what you did every time. Pictures, I honestly think the easiest way to do pictures is using the mobile app, and there'll be another video on that mobile application. Once you have it set up, that's probably the easiest way to go. But to set it up, I like using the desktop version. Another thing I'll mention is that you don't have to put every activity as an individual activity. So as an example, if you spent 2 weeks haying, I don't need you to put every morning that you went out and baled. You could, at the end of that 2 weeks, say, I spent 32 hours baling hay over this 2-week period, and that's fine with me. So if you know you work with your animal an hour every night for 2 months, you can go in at the end and put it all in rather than every single night having to do it. It works either way for me. Supervision is whether an advisor was out there with you, and in this case, we're going to say that it wasn't, and we'll hit save. So now she has journal entries included. Right there's her activity. So those things should be hopefully pretty straightforward, filling in those boxes. And then at the end, you can click this little brain with gears in it and put in what competencies and skill areas you met. So at the beginning, you added the skill areas. This is where you'd say what you did and if you completed those. You can look at a lot of different tools, how much your project is worth, what type of items you're using, and things like that. You can also view all those same things under reports. So for FAIR, what our expectation is at minimum, you'll do a single experience report. So for Gracie's Rabbit Ranch, she'll do single experience report, Rabbit Ranch, and hit complete report. Perfect. So now we'll view this report, and you'll see everything that she filled in the beginning sits right here. Those 2 items that we selected are right there. If we had put in a result, that's where that would show up. Her journal is right there. And then she's got her income, her expenses, and a profit and loss sheet. So it's a pretty easy way to have a complete looking record book as long as you set it up in the beginning and make sure and put in all of your activities, all the money you spend, and all the money you receive. Just for the sake of letting you guys see it, I'm going to pick on another student, or I'll show you one thing first. You can access that same report right here at the very edge. So if that's the way you want to do it, you can click on it that way. I'm going to show you one other student so that you can see what a really high quality type of report would look like. Jake made a pretty good report for the sake of his Star Green Hand competition. And so if we check his out, he's got a lot written in each one. That's pretty accurate. He has his skill areas. He doesn't have results because he's not finished with the project yet, but he has the hours that he put in doing all of those different things. He has what he bought and what he received as payment on all of those. And so he has a pretty complete report there. It's only 3 pages, but to come to FAIR and have something like this would look pretty good for you. It's a requirement for us that you do this, and there's a $25 prize for the best FFA record book at FAIR too, if you need motivation. So to end it, I'll just say again, if you need help with any of this, please reach out to us. We want you to have a good experience. We want you to know what you're doing. And if you have questions, please let us know.